So here is an incredible document released by the CIA, August 24th, 1999, Natural Cultural Development Under Communism. This was a document from June 1957, and it goes like this. Muslims of Russia, Tatars of the Volga and the Crimea, Kyrgyz and Sarts of Siberia and Turkestan, Turks and Tatars of Transcaucasia, Caucasians, Chechens, and mountain peoples of the Caucasus, and all of whose mosques and prayer houses have been destroyed, whose beliefs and customs have been trampled upon by the czars and the oppressors of Russia. Henceforth, your beliefs and customs, your natural and cultural institutions are forever free and inviolate. Organize your natural life in complete freedom. This is your right. Thus read the part of the proclamation issued on December 7, 1917 by the Bolsheviks over the signatures of Lenin and Stalin, addressed to all Muslim toilers of Russia and to the East. So the Council of the People's Commissars, which was the Bolsheviks in the Bolshevik Revolution, promised equality and sovereignty of the nations of Russia, the right of nations to free self-determination, including the right to secede and form independent states, abolition of all national and national religious privileges and restrictions whatsoever. Does this sound like the USA Declaration of Independence and Constitution, folks? Equality and sovereignty, self-determination, abolish the government if it doesn't serve you. All the same team. Freedom of the development for the national minorities and ethnographic groups inhabiting the territory of Russia. This was their planks they sold the people on. The Muslim peoples of Russia had at the time no way of knowing how little Bolshevik communist promises meant. Colonial subjects of the Tsar, whose lands had been forcibly incorporated, corporations, into and held part of the Russian Empire, they fervently desired national independence. The Tsarist regime, therefore, it appeared as the chief enemy of the Muslims, as of the Bolsheviks, so the former were easily persuaded to cooperate with the latter. Disillusionment was rapid. Muslim leaders were at first feasted and feted by the Bolsheviks, but as the power of the latter grew, they soon showed that their promises had been only a tactical maneuver. The Bolsheviks forgot their promises to recognize the right of self-determination. Decree issued February 1918, every citizen may profess any religion or none. Once the communists had consolidated their power, however, they began to reveal their true nature, to violate their early promises and to take repressive acts. Lands belonging to the mosques were confiscated by a decree in 1918. Muslim religious brotherhoods were outlawed during the period of 1921 to 22, and a campaign was launched to ridicule Islam and to undermine the influence of the spiritual leaders of the Muslim peoples. Does that sound like what's going on today with the Muslims and bashing the Muslims today? In 1929, a direct attack on Islam was began, which included measures that made active religious life virtually impossible. Now notice the stock market crash of 1929 as well after World War I. Islamic leadership was eliminated by the arrest and deportation, if not liquidation, that means killing, of almost all persons enjoying any religious status. Although few mosques have been built in the post-war period and few others repaired, the situation is little better than in 1942. In Tashkent, for example, there were 300 mosques graced the city before the communists came to power. Now only 20. This is the destruction of the Tartarian Empire, folks. Samarkand, which formerly had over 100, today 17. Bokhara, which had boasted 360, has 1 today. Stalinist precepts were carried out quickly. Stalin in 1920 had praised the Sharia as Muslim customary law, but the Soviet Political Party Dictionary in 1940 describes it as, quote, a means for keeping the workers in economic and political subordination by the rich. What's going on here today in the United States? The rich own the many. It legalizes domination, exploitation, and slavery of the workers, the enslavement of women, and states flatly that in the USSR now the Sharia law is eradicated. Such is the manner in which communists honor their promises. And so does the USA Corporation, folks. It's all the same team. They're all the same team. They've all been run by the same men in black since that time, as we'll get into in a minute. All right, let's get into the Tartarians here a little bit. Or let's take the matter of history, which along with religion, language, and literature constitute the core of the people's cultural heritage. Here again, the communists have interfered in a shameless manner. Mirror, please. On August 9, 1944, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, sitting in Moscow, issued a directive ordering the party's Tartar Provincial Committee, quote, to proceed to a scientific revision of the history of Tartaria, to liquidate serious shortcomings and mistakes of a nationalistic character committed by the individual writers and historians in dealing with Tartar history. Tartar history was to be rewritten, let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to eliminate the references to the great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of the Tartar-Russian relationships. And this was no isolated case. In every Muslim area in the USSR, historians on orders of the Communist Party, aka the Jesuits, have rewritten history to distort the facts so that the Russians appear always in good light. Needless to say, histories which present the facts truthfully have been withdrawn and destroyed so that the present and future generations of Muslims are forever denied their chance of learning the true facts of their nation's past. Great Russian interests required names to be besmirched, so Kazakh history was rewritten, and the communists call this the free cultural development! Exclamation point. Or take the case of Shamil, great hero of the Caucasian resistance to Russian aggression. This is the Tartars, who has received the same treatment as Kanasari. The great Soviet encyclopedia, an early edition published before the systematic rewriting of history, began, described him as the leader of the national liberation movement of the Caucasian mountain peoples, which was directed against the colonial policy of the Tsarist Russia. His denigration began in 1947 at a conference of the Historical Institute of the USSR Academy of Sciences. Now remember Uncle Joe and FDR and how they made all their deals after World War II, and now they set up the Institute of the USSR Academy of Sciences, just like the US has the Academy of Sciences, just like England has the Academy of Sciences. Again, folks, all the same team. All right, we refer to the mass deportation from their native places of whole nations. This deportation action was not dictated by any military necessity. Thus, already at the end of 1943, a decision was taken and executed concerning the deportation of all the Karakai from the lands of which they lived. It just goes on and on. The complete destruction of records, the complete destruction of the Islamic world, of the Tartarian Empire. And here we have further evidence of their destruction. Prima facie evidence from the CIA itself. So I want to go through and just revisionist history because we need to focus on this. We talk about the Jews, the Holocaust. Can't talk about it in Austria and go to jail. But 30 million people were murdered, genocided of their own Bolshevik revolution. Oh, by the way, it was created in Bronx, New York. How many of you know that? Lenin and Trotsky were groomed for the takeover of the coup of Russia in 1917 from the Tsar, backed by U.S. bankers, and $5 million in gold, with full compliance of Britain, Germany, Austria, and of course the ruling faction of the Vatican. In 1980, Frana was responsible for the first post-revolutionary collection of writings of Lenin and Trotsky to be published in the U.S. Trotsky, his date was a Marxist revolutionary and politician. Initially supported the Menshevik Internationalist. He arrived in New York on January 13th, 1917, stayed for 3 months at 1522 Vesey Avenue in the Bronx, wrote articles for the local Russian language socialist newspaper. Trotsky was living in New York City in February of 1917, and when overthrow of Tsar Nicholas II, he left New York on March 22nd. On the ship, the Christian Fjord was intercepted by British naval officials in Canada at Halifax, detained for a month after initial hesitation, demanded the release, and the British government freed him on April 29th, and they were seated with $5 million in gold to finance the coup. That would lead to between 10 to 50 million Russians slaughtered over the next decades. Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, the Jesuits' roots of American Vatican, Dancing Under the Red Star, an American survivor of the Soviet Gulag. This is about Ford Motor Company and Father Prescott Bush, how they were sent employees from Ford Motor Company over to Russia, to Gorky, to make tanks and trucks and cars to be used against the Allies. Just like Werner von Braun, the father of the Wunderkind V1 and V2 buzz bombs that rained hellfire on the Allies during World War II, was brought into the United States to run the Apollo Saturn fake moon program. So I'll put these in the show notes, but you can read about the treason of Rockefeller Oil, World War II. They provided the anti-knock device for World War II so the Messerschmitt flights could fly. Coca-Cola, they provided Fanta. They changed the name of Coca-Cola so they could sell Fanta. And then Hitlerism, which we'll get into a sec, and the hellstorm afterwards, how we treated the people that had fled Russia, and then we bombed the crap out of, carpet-bombed Dresden and other Berlin and other cities that Kurt Vonnegut wrote about, Operation Paperclip, as I just said, and how the Romans claim ownership of the entire world. This is part of a series I've done on my Taboo blog that I'll put in the show notes here. And it's just, here's the flat earth, the chronology of the 500-year Jesuit deception on flat earth, how the Vatican created Islam by the former Jesuit priest Alberto Rivera. He got killed for giving out the information, how the Jesuits rule America. You want to talk about Trump, Fordham University, Clinton, Georgetown University, out here in California, Jerry Brown, former Jesuit minister, governor, his dad, Pat Brown, Order of the D. Maleg, new governor, Gavin Newsom, Santa Clara Jesuit School, Trump and Ted Cruz, Illuminati and the Jesuits, Obama as the Jesuit kitchen. Let's stop talking about the puppets, folks. Let's talk about the real people. The Jesuits assassinated Kennedy, the manufacturer of the Beatles rock and roll by the Tavistoka Jesuits. The origins of vaccine by the Jesuits, the roots of America's Vatican-created war with Russia, and it goes on and on and on. So here you can see who they are, and I did, I've even infiltrated where my son's going to school at the Waldorf School. So this will all be in the show notes. But what I wanted to get into a little more was the history, Hitler and the Vatican Jesuit creation of. It's just another coincidence that the Vatican-run military, the Knights of Malta, Himmler's SS of Nazi Germany, the Jeb Bush member Knights of Columbus, and the Ku Klux Klan all have the exact same symbol, the Iron Cross. What are the odds? The Jews were persecuted, the Allies won the war, and Hitler was pure evil. Uncle Joe Stalin of Russia was the buddy of FDR and Churchill, is the official narrative that has been ingrained ad nauseum by the universal Rockefeller school system since the end of World War II. The Nazis, like the British, like the Russians, like the Americans, were the puppets of the puppet masters since 1812, the Jesuits of the Holy Roman Empire. Hitler was a puppet of the SS leader Heinrich Himmler. It's always the person right of the puppets, guys. It's Joe Biden who is the Catholic. It's Pence who's the Catholic. It's Himmler who took out the Black Pope so he could become the Black Pope. In 1933, Germany signed a concordant with the Vatican before World War II even began. So did Mussolini of the fascist Italy and Franco of Spain. And also the Vatican provided rat lines so the 3,000 German scientists that committed genocide after World War II could go down to Argentina and get out of Germany and then be brought into the United States. Facts. Operation Paperclip. So this goes on and on about how Hitler was just a figurehead. Blame the Hitlers. The Bush family made a fortune from the Nazis as well. And also the agreement, the Havara agreement, was an agreement between Nazi Germany and Zionist Germany Jews signed on August 25th, 1933. It was finalized 3 months of talks by the Zionist Federation of Germany and the Anglo-Palestine Bank and the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. The agreement was designed to help facilitate the immigration of German Jews to Palestine. While it helped Jews immigrate, it forced them to temporarily give up possessions to Germany before departing. These possessions could later be reobtained by transferring them to Palestine as German exports goods. So they were trying to help the Jews get out, folks. They weren't beating up on the Jews. And there's on the rat lines. At the end of World War II, the Vatican assisted over 3,000 Nazi leaders to escape through the Vatican-issued passport rat lines. And here, folks, you can just do it yourself. Joseph Lenin, trained by the Jesuits, he graduated at the top of his class in 1892, accepted as a student of the Orthodox Seminary of Tbilisi, Georgia, where he trained as a Jesuit priest. The history books report that Christianity was banned in Russia under the communists, but this was not the case with the Jesuits. Stalin was a Jesuit priest, and it goes on and on. The Jesuit Catholic roots of the Americans, Vatican created war with Russia. The Russias. Communism was a curse invented by the Jesuits via their reduction settlements in South America. They chose as their puppet German Jew Karl Marx while under their care in Trier. They have carefully played both the Russians and Americans against each other ever since, cashing on literally on the resulting bloodshed. They use their infiltrators and subversives in America to counter the Nazi-given technological advances with self-destructive leadership and policy decisions. And it goes on and on. I'll put it in the show notes. So this is what I want to conclude on. All wars are bankers' wars is the piece I just put together a while ago. This was the date, May 26, 2014. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, there will be peace, no doubt. The views of history, I want to get into this Albert Pike so everybody understands what's going on here. And you can read about Albert Pike, and he was published in the Masonic Handbook of the Morals and Dogmas of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And also Mazzini was another huge influence as well. Between the two of them, they worked out a military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout what we considered the Four of the Conspiracy in the final stage of the 20th century. 1859 and 1871, they decided there was going to be 3 world wars. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and making that country a fortress of aesthetic communism. The divergences caused by the agents who are agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy other governments in order to weaken their religions. Also, Otto von Bismarck was a co-conspirator of Albert Pike. The Second World War. Also, Albert Pike is buried in the mausoleum in Washington, D.C. at the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, folks. Again, folks, all by very long-term design. We must understand how long they've been planning all this. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. The war must be brought about so that Nazism destroyed and the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time we would need it for the final social cataclysm. Here we are now, which began with 9/11, the attack on USA Corporation soil with the Twin Towers, Jacob and Boys, owned by the Rockefellers, the land they bought and erected the towers. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and the political Zionism state of Israel mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. Remember, this was written in the 1850s to 1870s, folks. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will, from that moment, be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, without knowing where to render its adoration. Who's your daddy? That's why we have a nanny state. You pick blue for your mommy, you pick red for your daddy. Republican and Democrat, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. What are we seeing today? We're seeing Luciferian statues being put in Detroit, being put in Arkansas, trying to put in Oklahoma. These are 1.5 ton, 7, 8 foot statues, folks. It's happening right now. This manifestation will result in the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, world events, in particular the Middle East, show a growing unrest and instability between modern Zionism and the Arabic world. This is completely in line with the call for a third world war to be fought between the two and the allies on both sides. This third world war is still to come, and recent events show us that is not far off. And in closing, the Georgia Guidestones, most of you have heard of the Georgia Guidestones, but let's just keep that in mind. I actually, back in 2006 or 7, I flew to Georgia. It's about 2.5 hours northeast, Epperton County, Atlanta is where these Guidestones are. The commandments, there's 10 commandments written in the finest granite in the United States in Epperton County, Georgia. This calls for 10 commandments on the new age of reason to maintain the world population under 500 million people. So if we're at, how many billion? 7 billion today. Do the math on that. I mean, this was no small undertaking. It cost tens of millions of dollars. The 6 granite slabs weighing 250,000 pounds. And this is the new Stonehenge. And here you can see a picture of it. These columns stand 19.6 feet tall. Each column, I think, weighed about 2.5 tons. And then there's a capstone on here. And then this is appearing where you could actually see some etching inside of here. And there's also a portal on the side where you could see at noon each day. So they're pointing towards the sun at high noon every day, no matter what time of the year, using blue granite. And they wrote the Georgia Guidestones in 8 different languages, 2 to a side: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindu, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, so everybody could understand it. And then at the top of the capstones, right up here, in Babylonian, Classic Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics, which they brought people from all around the world to say, it says, "Let this be the age of reason" in the ancient writings. These languages are of great importance to the occult mystery schools of the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, and here you can see the Egyptian hieroglyphs and how it's being laid out with these portals, these astrological portals. Here's the sight line looking up to the North Star. But this was really interesting, looking in this slot and seeing some carvings which I couldn't read inside of these, but it was very astronomical in nature. R.C. Christian was the author, the person who was commissioned to be the one to put this stuff together back in, I think it was 1980, late 1980s this was built. The time capsule they put on it is placed 6 feet below on the spot, but it says to be opened on, but they never put the date on. And here you can see, maintain humanity under 500 billion people in perpetual balance with nature, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. That's why they want your DNA, folks. To unite humanity with a living new language, creating a new language. Rule passion. Rule it. They're going to rule your passion. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Yeah, just us. Let all nations rule eternally, resolving external disputes in a world court. One world order. Avoid petty laws. No small municipalities can have laws. Balance personal rights with social duties. You will work for the state. Prize truth, beauty, and love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer of this earth, number 10 says. Be not a cancer of the earth. Leave room for nature, leave room for nature. Well, Cancer is earth in astrology. Leave room for nature, as they are destroying nature as it is today. Very serious intention here, folks. So they're talking about a reduction of over 93% of the population. So let's take this all very, very seriously. And again, the only answers I can come up with, besides awakening others, is to find your tribe. Get your own food sources. Get your own sources of water and your own energy, as they're turning off the power all over California. Helicopters flying all over. PG&E putting all these incredible infrastructure underground, big, huge towers going up everywhere. They're all over the place. It's ridiculous. Don't get scared. Get active. Inactivity deemed more deadly than error. So find your tribe, share this with everybody. The Tartarians were once a great empire of benevolence. They're called the land of plenty. One of their only rules was to give back to nature what you take. And they had an empire of benevolence in all the cathedrals that we see today, Notre Dame and Chartres and the rest of them around the world, the mosques. They were healing centers. They were saving species. They were the goodness that existed and could be created again when we come together and shine your light into the darkness. This is the dawn of understanding. We are the light shining into the dark. Once you shine light into the dark, it is no longer dark, but dark cannot eliminate and extinguish light. Remember this at all times. And those of you talking about the communists in Russia and the Russians taking over the ports of the Long Beach, give me a break, folks. The Chinese own all our debt. Everybody owns all our debt. They already own all the lands in here. It's not China. It's not Russia. It's not the USA. They're all corporations. They all clear through the same Bank of International Settlement in Basel, Switzerland. And who are the bankers for the Vatican? It's the Rothschilds who own the Bank of International Settlements, okay? We know who they are. Let's speak out. Let's be heard while we still can, while there's still time. Find your tribe, save your seeds, plant the seeds of which you want to see. Hopium comes through action. Be the change we have to see for our children, or there will be no future. All right, plain truth out, peace, love one another. Let's get back to our Tartarian roots.